Today, I'm gonna be reacting to his story. So you guys, this is the highest growing subscribers channels right now. So let's react to him. First video.
My dad stood over my bed. You can skip school today if you come to work with me instead. 5-year-old me instantly jumped out of bed, even though I had no idea what my dad's job was. Yes, yes, yes. He passed me a ski mask, and I followed him to the car with no idea what to expect. We drove past houses, and I
Bro,
pointed at the boarded up
that's
windows.
a rubber.
Where are we going, Daddy? He spoke through gritted teeth. Don't ask me any more questions, son. Beads of sweat came down my face, but I nodded because I didn't want my dad to be mad at me. He parked behind a house with cages on the windows, and when we got out, he pulled a huge black duffel bag out of the trunk. He hung the strap over my shoulder. I need you to knock and give this to them, son. I can't be seen here. This job's better for you anyway. My knees were trembling, and I didn't want to do it anymore. But before I could say anything, my dad was already watching from behind the corner, so I dragged the duffel bag up the stairs. When I knocked, the biggest man I'd ever seen opened the door. I waved.
What's
My
that
daddy
so
has this
huge?
delivery for you. He's around the corner. He unzipped the bag without a word and stared inside. Is that it? My heart started pounding with adrenaline because he was staring at me with daggers in his eyes. He immediately grabbed his phone to dial 911, and I felt my dad's hand closed around my arm. Run, buddy, as fast as you can. Now, my dad was sprinting down the block, so I followed him
just
while
need to
my
click
ankles
something.
ached. Why are we running, Daddy? He didn't answer, and the sirens behind us kept getting louder. Ahead was an alley, skinny and dark. He stopped running. He turned around and ran towards me. I'm sorry, son. I love you. I want you to remember that grown-ups sometimes do bad things, but it's never their children's fault. I wanted to ask what he meant, but he ran down the alley as the cop cars pulled up. An officer held me tight with tears in his eyes. You shouldn't have had to go through that. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to know where my daddy was. My dad stood over my bed. You
Bro, that was actually kind of sad.
My dad shook me awake at 4 a.m. on a school night, frantically telling me to get out of bed and come to the living room right now. I shot up still half asleep, but Dad was already bolting downstairs. I followed him, my heart pounding because this felt wrong. Dad sat me in a chair and pulled me to the TV. Mortal Kombat was loaded up.
Oh my, bro, I love this game. Mortal Kombat. I play this game like almost every day. I love that game.
Finally unlocked all the characters, son. I really want to play with you using them. He tossed me a controller with the widest grin and sat next to me, but I groaned because he'd made me believe something was wrong. I have school tomorrow, Dad. I need to sleep. I put the controller down and stood up, but then he put his hand on my shoulder. You're not going to school, kid. You're playing Mortal Kombat with me. My face lit up, and before I could respond, Dad pulled 2 pizza boxes and lemonade from behind the couch. So what do you say? School or fun with your dad? I instantly plopped down and grabbed my controller while he loaded up the game, smiling. I used every character he unlocked, and when the sun came up and the school bus drove by our house, me and Dad were still playing. The only danger around was having too much fun. My dad shook me awake at 4 a.m. on a school night. I was in class making my robotic arm clench a fist just by thinking about it, when the biggest bully in school snatched it off and held it out of reach. Cool toy, it's mine now. He looked at both my empty sleeves and smirked. What are you gonna do? Grab it with your nubs, loser. I stood up, shoved him until he dropped it, and clicked it back into place. It's not a toy. This is my arm. The recess bell rang, and his face twisted with anger. We'll finish this at recess. My stomach dropped, because I knew he meant it, but I wasn't letting him take it. I walked into recess with my fist clenched, ready for him. He came straight at me, ripped my arm off my shoulder, and when I reached for it with my nub, he slapped me with my own arm and shoved me into the dirt. You don't deserve this arm like I do. The whole playground laughed. He slid my arm onto his own and held it up. This is mine now. Nobody can beat me. And for the first time, I let his words get to me and felt defeated. But then he turned on the little kids, chasing them and grabbing them by the collar with my hand while they cried. When one boy tripped, the bully stood over him and raised my fist to hit him. So I got up and shoved him with my nubs. That's not yours. Leave him alone. The playground went silent because I had no hands and no way to fight him. He let the boy go, grabbed my collar, and pulled his fist back. Everyone waited for me to get destroyed, but I just smiled because he had no idea what he was holding. He swung my arm to punch me, but it yanked backward and stopped. He stared at it, confused. Why'd it do that? Obey me. Punch him. But I smiled harder because I control my arm with my thoughts. I clenched my nub and my fist flew back and cracked him in his own nose. nose. Then I made him slap himself, shove himself into the dirt, and grab his own collar. Exactly what he did to me. The whole playground erupted. The little kids he'd terrorized laughing the loudest. "Stop! You belong to me!" he cried, punching my arm as hard as he could to knock it off.
It
But
belongs
it's
to the
metal,
boy.
so he just shattered the
Give it
bones in
back.
his own hand and dropped to his knees, screaming. I calmly picked my arm up and clicked it back on. "You just got rocked by a kid with no hands, loser." I was in class making my robot.
Saunas are overrated.
The class clown tried to hypnotize the meanest teacher in school. "You're getting very sleepy." Mrs. Vaughn
What?
snatched the pendulum mid-swing. "One more word, and you're suspended." My eyes widened, because if he made another teacher quit too, he'd probably get expelled. But Dante turned to the class like he didn't even care. Should I tell her what happened yesterday when I hypnotized her? I had no idea what he was talking about, but kids all around me started nodding, and Mrs. Vaughn put her hands on her hips. "What are you talking about?" Dante smirked. "You knelt down and swore loyalty to me in front of everybody. You said I was a king." I pinched myself to stop myself from laughing, and I realized none of this ever happened. The whole class was just backing up his lie to break her. But then she pointed straight at me, because I was the only kid she actually trusted. "Tell them the truth." My heart started pounding with adrenaline, because if I lied, I'd get in trouble with Dante. But if I told the truth, the whole class would hate me. You bowed down to him, miss. You told him you'd do anything for him." Her face went red, but before she could scream at me, Dante took out his phone. "I have proof." He walked to the front of the class, took the black wire connected to the projector, and plugged it into his phone. On the big screen, we watched as Mrs. Vaughn got on her knees and actually bowed down to Dante. "You're my king, my lord. I would do anything for you." I was so shocked I couldn't even breathe, because I hadn't expected him to make an AI video just to annoy Mrs. Vaughn. The entire class was banging on their desks, laughing. Mrs. Vaughn instantly grabbed the wall phone to call the principal. My entire body tensed up because I thought we were all going to be suspended. And when the principal walked in, Mrs. Vaughn pointed a shaking hand at the projector. Look what Dante made. He's destroying my reputation with lies." I held my breath, but the principal took one look at Dante and went pale. He leaned into her ear to whisper, and the room was so quiet, we heard every word. "I fought him last year about this, and the board didn't do anything because they couldn't prove the video was fake. Just say you remember. It's easier." I gasped, because even the principal couldn't save her, because Dante had gotten to him too. Mrs. Vaughn looked around, and Dante snapped his fingers. "And you're awake from my hypnotic spell."
Just
She
say you
closed her
remember.
eyes and said it through her teeth. "Welcome back, my lord." The class clown tried to hypnotize the meanest teacher. I got an emergency call that a robbery was in progress, so I rushed over to the store, my hands on my holster. The owner immediately pointed at the homeless man sitting on the floor in
Shoot
the
that
corner
boy.
of his store. "That filthy beggar was robbing me," he spat. "Arrest him." I walked towards the man and noticed the scrunched up bouquet of flowers in his lap. I asked him if he'd really been stealing, and he looked up. "It's my wife's birthday. She's homeless out here with me, and I had no money to get her flowers." My chest tightened because his entire face was bruised, but the owner was already leaning over my shoulder. He reached down and snatched the flowers out of the man's lap. "Here's what I think of your wife." He spat on the bouquet and dropped it onto the floor. I was shocked, but the homeless man instantly pushed himself up to his feet. "Don't you ever talk about my wife." The owner spun to me instantly, pointing. "See? He's aggressive. He just threatened me. Arrest him right now." I realized the situation
You
was
insulted him
escalating,
first.
so I put a hand up and told everyone to calm down, but the owner was starting to get on my nerves. I asked the man how he got the bruises on his face, and the owner smirked. "That was me. I made sure to really hit hard when I saw this piece of filth stealing." He said it proudly, and because I was homeless once, I'd reached my limit. "So you assaulted him. That's a crime, and you're under arrest." His face dropped as I reached for my cuffs. He shoved me back hard. "You're not arresting me. Arrest him and his wife for existing around me." But I closed the gap and grabbed his wrist. "I'll charge you for assault of an officer too if you're not careful." The homeless man put his hand on my shoulder. Nobody's ever taken my side before. I nodded and walked the owner out while he cursed at us. But as I shoved him into my cruiser, I saw the homeless man handing the flowers to his wife on the corner, and beside them, there was a homeless little girl, mouthing, "Happy birthday, Mommy." My heart genuinely shattered, so I decided to go buy them a birthday cake out of the owner's wallet. He watched helplessly, red in the face as I handed it to them. I got an emergency call that a robbery was in progress, so I
Ready to unlock roadblocks?
I was showing the new girl Melody how to work the ticket register when my coworker Ben leaned over her shoulder. "Sweetheart, you might want to ask to be trained by someone who isn't an idiot." Melody's eyes darted between us, like she
Bro,
wasn't sure if this was a
I'm not
joke,
idiot.
and I gave her a small smile. "It's okay, you're doing great." She waited until he walked off before asking, "Are you seriously okay with him talking to you like that?" I just shrugged. I just ignore it. I'd stood up for myself once before and gotten written up for creating a hostile work environment, so I'd learned to keep my mouth shut a long time ago. This was just the usual around here, so I didn't expect today to be any different. An hour later, I was walking Melody through the weekly movie schedule. when
You guys,
Ben launched.
let me check out his most famous quotes.
My twin
Please say
brother Chris and I were 9 when we learned Morse code. We tapped messages under the dinner table when Mom told us to stop talking and tapped through the wall between our bedrooms every night. When Chris got into a car accident and the doctor said he'd never wake up, I pulled up a chair next to his bed, took his hand, and tapped. Are you there? Nothing. But I came back the next afternoon and tapped again. Before I left, I always said the same thing. See you tomorrow, Chris. A week later, Chris's fingers twitched against mine, and I almost fell out of my chair. I grabbed a nurse and she barely looked up. They're reflexes. It doesn't mean anything. I bought a notebook the next day and started writing down every single one. 4 months in, Mom watched me scribbling and said, "How long are you gonna keep doing this? Until he taps back." He's not gonna tap back. You're talking to a corpse. Dad lasted a few more months before he pulled me into the
No.
hall. We need to talk about donating your brother's organs.
brother
His
died.
fingers move every time I hold his hand, Dad. The nurses said those are reflexes. Stop getting your hopes up, son. I don't care what the nurses say. You're not donating my brother's organs. But a week later, my parents called to have
No.
Chris transferred to a long-term facility to die and scheduled a meeting to sign the papers. The afternoon before the meeting,
Bro, you guys, this is so sad. Don't sell his corpse.
I tapped
Please.
into his palm like always, but this time, something tapped back. Short, short, short. Long, long, long. Short, short, short. SOS. I grabbed his hand. Chris, if that's you, squeeze once. He squeezed so hard my knuckles cracked. I stormed into the meeting room and told them my brother just responded to me. The caseworker said, "This is very common with families who aren't ready to let go." My parents nodded. I grabbed the transfer papers off the table. "You're not signing anything until you come see for yourself." I walked them to Chris's bed and grabbed his hand. "Ask him anything." The caseworker asked what year it was. Chris squeezed out the answer. Count to 5. 5 perfect squeezes. His mother's name, tapped out letter by letter. By the 10th question, she said, "He's still alive. We can't move him."
Yo.
Weeks later, I asked Chris what kept him fighting when everyone gave up. Heard Mom call me a corpse. Heard Dad say donate my organs. Heard all of them leave, except you. I asked why. I wanted to see you too. My twin brother Chris and I were 9 when we... My daughter came home crying with an F because her teacher doesn't know what color blood is. The first time I realized something was wrong, Riley came home
Blood's
from school
clearly
holding out her
red.
arm. "Look, Dad, you can see the blue blood in my veins right here." She traced the blue lines under
Oh,
her skin with her finger. I
veins.
put down my coffee and looked at her. "Actually, sweetheart, that's not true. Blood is always red because of hemoglobin. It's just darker red